Thank you. That was great.
You got the money I sell, right?
Oh, I sent it back. Thank you so much.
I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, good. We have practice this week. Good.
We went to shore.
Yeah, we switched it that day of rehearsal.
Yeah.
But I forgot to switch it.
We were in the mountain biking capital of the Pacific Northwest. Oak Ridge. Yes. A town of 3,000. No, that's what's funny. I mean, we were there Memorial Day weekend, and it wasn't mountains at all. I mean, yeah, so, you know, that's not like, isn't that north, you know, Pacific Coast. Yeah. We had a good time. It's a lot of shuttling because it's so steep that it's very unless you do the river, you know, trails to the other stuff. 3.5 miles, 2,500 feet of precipice. Yeah, it was steep.
Yeah.
So, no, that shuttle, drive a van. Oh, there's no way.
Yeah, I have one of my scary Dillon biking
Oh, yeah?
and so I had to go back on the bike.
Right. Gotcha. Why do you call them scary?
Like 2 of them.
Oh, okay. Right.
You know, I get revenge on this kind of stuff.
Right. There you go.
Yeah.
Works both ways.
Yeah.
So, cool.
Yeah, and you're
Yeah. See, I haven't looked at the sign-up sheet. I'm going to take a picture of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but yeah, Ron said it's going well.
I'll send you a link to the photos.
Yeah, well, you sent me some. I looked at those.
And I'm surprised I did.
When you first got there.
It's usually we always get some
Cool.
but it hasn't been
So did you see things that were unique?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some smooth,
Why are they called Christmas trees?
oh, because they look like a little Christmas tree. They come out. They have these fans that come out. Okay. Yeah. Oh, and I saw a bottle there too.
A what?
So I've got to see it.
So have you seen that movie, Last Breath or whatever?
No, I haven't.
So it's all about deep diving and
Yeah.
an incident that happened at sea. But it was,
That's hardcore stuff.
yeah, but it was interesting.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hello.
How are ya?
I'm good.
Good.
I am going to get to see you
I know, I saw that on the schedule.
this week.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, well, first of all, I've just gone to downtown for years, and I couldn't coordinate the window to make
Witness,
an appointment.
right.
But then I said, well, just put me in. I need to take some care of this. And they just said your last name wrong. And then all of a sudden and then I found out it was. I went, oh, that'll be interesting. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it'll be great. So looking forward to it. It's Thursday, right?
Likely.
Yeah.
I'm not very good with my
All right.
calendar. I
Gotcha.
live with paper calendars in front of me. I can't remember.
Yeah, bring.
Oh, I know what it was. The last time I went in for, I had an X-ray. My back was so bad. I was like, what? I'm old. This was the answer. But it was the very first day that you guys had switched out to the whole new system.
Yeah.
And it's kind of comical.
It was the definition of chaos.
Every person I dealt with in my getting the appointment, going to get an X-ray, were 4 different people, and every one of them was like,
Right. Yeah.
Excuse me, if you're staying, feel free to bring in coffee and cookies. And
Okay,
thank
cool.
you, Dad. And then at some point they were like, oh, today's the first day of our new system.
Yeah.
I mean, it was,
Yeah.
so,
It's still creating many groans, but it'll come
yeah.
with time. So
This is Christmas tree.
cool.
The picture.
Oh, those are Christmas tree worms.
Yeah, yes.
Nice.
Anyway, sorry to interrupt.
No, I'm done.
Ah.
Enough of my,
So yeah, bring your list, whatever. We'll catch up.
it's thankfully short. All right, see you later.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
All right. July. What does your July look like for like a Friday or a Saturday? We know you have your biking.
Yeah, so the
Dillon.
11th.
Yeah, we're out of town.
Okay.
So that's perfect.
Yeah. I think the rest of it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll talk to Kim about the following week. And I'll get back with you. All right.
Yeah. All right. Good.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Well, welcome back. Glad you're in one.
Well, I think we may have a couple others that'll be straggling in, but let us get started since it's approaching 10:30 already. Thank you for coming this morning to listen, learn, and share your thoughts. I'd like to outline kind of what we're going to be doing this morning. I want to start with a few introductory remarks, then based upon those and some background related, present a paper that I've just written, then ask for your comments during a period of discussion and question and answer. And then finally, I'd like to close, assuming we have time, which hopefully we will, with a few remarks from the Lutheran Church Caring for Creation statement, which leads into a very short prayer. Not like one of Darlene's prayers, but a very short prayer. So, just a little bit of background related to today's presentation and discussion. This is really kind of the fourth in a series of topics we've discussed on the general subject of caring for creation going back over the last 2 years. For example, about 2 years ago, and Nancy Spears was an integral part of this, we had a film that we watched called A Need to Grow, which talked about regenerative agriculture and the need to restore our agricultural systems through a different sustainable type of agriculture. Then last year, around Earth Day, I discussed kind of a primer about sustainability, what it means in terms of meeting the needs of present environment and people without sacrificing needs for the future. And that was based a lot on my sustainability website. Then later, a couple months later, we had a presentation by Hunter Lovins from the Natural Capitalism Institute down in Loveland, and she gave us some additional background on developing a new type of economy based upon regenerating the environment and also a circular economy which would tend to reuse and recycle much more than we do at the present time. Hunter's book, which was entitled Find a Future, which some of you got, and subtitled Created an Economy in Service to Life, also has some background material related to one of the main topics I'm going to be presenting today about the so-called planetary boundaries, which scientists discovered around, or I shouldn't say discovered, but were really congregating about studying around 2009. Now, to begin, to kind of set the stage, I've got a quote that I'd like to read that could well have been written by a small international organization, small relative to the whole profession, called the International Society for Ecological Economists. It's mostly comprised of academics and people from around the world. The type of work and type of concerns that they express, you will unfortunately never hear on CNBC or any of the news outlets that discuss economy and business these days, because it goes counter to all the prevailing thoughts that you hear on TV. As I say, this quote that I want to use to start with could have been written by them, but it actually was not. It was written by a Lutheran theologian by the name of Larry Rasmussen, who was a professor at Union Seminary for many, many years and has contributed a lot to the literature on creation theology. And the particular quote is as follows: "The issue for many in developed countries and developing countries is not how to alter environments so as to serve the economy and yet be sustained, but how to alter economies so as to serve comprehensive environments ordered around healthy communities. Let me read this again. The issue for many in both developed and developing countries is not how to alter environments so as to serve the economy and yet be sustained, but how to alter economies so as to serve comprehensive environments ordered around healthy communities. In other words, the reverse of kind of what's grown up as the economics profession in the United States, where everything is meant to serve the economy and the production and output. And it was originally thought, for example, during the settlement of this country, all right, so if we have an extinction of beavers, that's okay because we can use raccoons instead. So everything is substitutable and can be used to serve the economy.
Doug, when was that written?
This was roughly 20 years ago. No, actually longer than that. 25, 30 years ago, let's see. It came out in the early 1990s, I believe.
Yeah, that's good enough.
Yeah.
Pardon me?
That's good enough.
Yeah.
That's a wonderful statement for 20 years ago.
There was, as you might surmise from some things I'm going to be talking about, there was a large body of literature dealing with creation theology much before the 80s and 90s, when the word sustainability started to become a buzzword. But there are a couple of exceptions which I will mention. So, based upon the preceding, and to try to alter our way of thinking so that the economy can serve people in the environment rather than the other way around, I wrote a paper entitled An Economy Based Upon the Quality of Life, an Idea Whose Time Has Come. And I'll read this paper, and then we'll have our period of discussion. In recent years, more than ever before, society is becoming aware of environmental and natural resource survival threats to human civilization and planet. No, I'm making the assumption that we will have a civilization and planet enduring. Although I have read that it's been said that we don't really have to worry about that because ants will always survive. Not surprisingly, climate change has received the most media attention by far. However, various studies, which began around in the early part of this century, continue to reveal the decline of other vital conditions as well. In particular, scientists have been studying 9 so-called planetary boundaries, which are critical for Earth's resilience and sustainability to support human and other life forms. These boundaries represent limits beyond which environmental systems would be severely impaired, and we don't really know to what extent or whether they would recover, would be severely impaired as determined by the measurement of specific conditions. 6 of these conditions relating to climate change, deforestation, biodiversity, synthetic chemicals and plastics, fresh water and nitrogen are believed to be deep in the danger zone approaching planetary boundaries. 2 are considered borderline, ocean acidification and atmospheric particle pollution, and 1 looks to be safe, ozone depletion. Probably the large environmental victory over the last 30 years or so. The breach of these planetary boundaries can be readily correlated with high levels of consumption and affluence in the developed countries and a growing global population which desires to consume more like the developed countries. Our consumption affects these planetary boundaries in 2 primary ways. First, through the direct use of fossil fuels, food, water, natural resources, and biological productivity, and the resulting manufacturing products. And secondly, through land use changes which destroy natural systems in conjunction with the previous. Because of our democratic personal freedoms, this paper argues that it is up to us to transform our values and culture towards a consumer economy which promotes the quality of life as opposed to more materialistic quantity of life.
Would you read that sentence again?
Yeah.
I remember it when I read your paper.
Because of our democratic personal freedoms, this paper argues that it is up to us to transform our values and culture towards a consumer economy which promotes the quality of life as opposed to a more materialistic quality of life. And I'm under no illusions about the things that I'm talking about and calling for. I don't necessarily expect to see done in my lifetime, but something which I believe is vital for everybody to start thinking about. It must be said that this idea about orienting our economy more towards a quality of life is not completely new. When I first began a career in the environmental field around 1970, an impassioned debate was occurring regarding the environmental pollution crises, which were impairing public health and causing large economic and aesthetic damages. Some said the cause was population growth. Others said new technologies. And some believed it was rapid post-war economic growth and per capita material consumption. At that time, ecologist Barry Commoner, who some of you may remember from my generation, Barry Commoner also ran for president in 1976 on a minority party. Barry Commoner developed a simple but powerful formula which examined the relative importance of these factors in relation to pollution. Again, technology, economic growth, and population. Perhaps more importantly, this approach that he developed can now be utilized to provide valuable insights into how population and consumption drive resource demands which threaten the planetary boundaries mentioned before and threaten a sustainable future. Also, at that time, there arose a moral imperative championed by Anglican Archbishop John Taylor, who published A Theology of Enough. He urged us to resist excessive consumption, which, he argued, does not really satisfy our basic needs and wants, but which exists as a result of social, psychological, and cultural pressures. More recently, various religious denominations have spoken out about economic life. In particular, Pope Francis, in his far-reaching encyclical Laudato Si, talking about human and the rest of creation, he proclaimed that, quote, "We human beings, above all, need to change excessive consumerism and cycles of buying and spending towards a new lifestyle," end of quote. The historical developments noted above inspired me to write a 1977 journal article entitled More Growth or Better Growth. I suggested that perhaps we as consumers might strive to orient our lifestyles towards a, quote, quality of life as opposed to an increasingly materialistic quantity of life. At present, I would submit that the combination of one, the COVID pandemic and recovery, two, a new generation more interested in experiences and sharing goods, and three, the existential threats described above, all suggest that an economy based upon the quality of life is an idea whose time has come. So what is a quality of life? Clearly, the term will mean different things to different people. After we meet basic human needs and satisfying meaningful wants, there will be some who will want to own every possible vehicle or electronic device or the absolutely latest or most lavish version of anything. But does ownership of these extras truly contribute to a quality of life? As we seek happiness and fulfillment, we could strive to consume fewer goods and stuff and materialistic resources. Instead, as examples, we might consume and support better nutrition and fitness, health services, outdoor sports and recreation, restaurant dining, yeah, that's for Darlene, cultural and entertainment events, personal services, educational enrichment, travel services and ecotourism, and charitable giving activities, including environmental and social programs. Obviously, as we'll discuss later, this type of shift in consumerism obviously still does not eliminate a still considerable need for energy and materials and additional adaptations. Prior to the advent of COVID, some steps in the direction of a consumer economy based upon quality of life began with some of the millennial generation. The latter was embracing a desire for social fulfillment through social experiences, e.g. an experiential economy, while to some degree reducing outright ownership of purchases of hard goods, and such as autos and houses, e.g. a shared economy. After COVID, a return from social distancing along with improved economic conditions have fostered a boom in travel, outdoor recreation, dining and experiences, and a reduced demand for some hard goods, due in part to interest rates and inflation. Going forward, it's important that trends towards an experiential economy and quality of life continue. COVID also demonstrated the importance of an economy based upon quality of life. It underscored the importance of broader-based access to health care among many groups in urban and rural America. Also, the susceptibility of those with pre-existing conditions, such as obesity, diabetes, and heart conditions, points to the importance of better nutrition and exercise. Now, it should be noted that this discussion of quality of life has been based largely upon a middle and upper class perspective. However, among lower income communities, there are other facets lacking which many of us take for granted, such as safe neighborhoods, adequate transportation, adequate housing, and food access and security. In still too many locations, issues of environmental justice and health impacts result from automobile traffic, oil refineries, coal-fired power plants, hazardous waste sites, and uranium and other mine tailings. Whereas these other facets of quality of life are mostly related to poverty, public policy, and governance, this paper discusses quality of life primarily in regards to consumer economic behavior. In addition to behavioral influences such as status symbols, Archbishop John Taylor also acknowledged that due to differing consumer wants and needs, the act of simplifying our lifestyle with our purchases can be guided by personal reflection. We may consider some important questions. What purchases truly provide satisfaction? Are there alternatives to purchasing? What size do I need? How many do I need? Is the product durable and meant to last? Can I find an adequate pre-owned product? Is the product made from recycled materials? Can it be shared, reused, or recycled? I would submit that some combination of these questions can be utilized with almost any consumer purchase, whether you're talking about skis, houses, clothes, or whatever. These questions about our consumption practices are also important because of the affluence disparities in human consumption, whereby wealthier individuals generally consume much more than middle-income individuals, and middle-income individuals in developed countries consume much more than individuals in developing countries. Although the above examination and alteration of our consumer behavior will help reduce consumption of materials and energy, one might well argue that these measures are necessary but not sufficient in a finite world. As discussed further below, to provide for basic human needs, and to shift more towards the quality of life as discussed above will still require considerable inputs of energy and materials and the use of natural systems which threaten the planetary boundaries discussed earlier. Although there is still a long way to go, it would appear that the needed energy transformation to combat climate change is currently ahead of the consumer lifestyle transformation for which I'm advocating. Internationally important drivers such as lower cost government funding and economic incentives, ESG initiatives and financial reporting, and public opinion have been affecting a global energy transmission. a global energy transition. A wide range of technologies, including solar, wind, hydro, geothermal, green hydrogen, fuel cells, energy storage, energy efficiency, and heat pumps, are under development and competing to provide electrification and thermal energy for both widespread and niche applications. We can already observe that this energy transformation will not be linear nor smooth, e.g. delays in market fluctuations in the production of electric vehicles, increased use of natural gas for electrical generation to support AI and air conditioning, and even in some countries, increasing use of coal along with renewable energy. Should also be noted that to varying degrees, all of these technologies require large material, mineral, and chemical inputs, requiring extensive earth moving, mining, and manufacturing. These operations result in both the depletion of natural resources and generation of environmental contamination, including hazardous waste. Therefore, the inputs required for the energy transition and for the production of goods to satisfy human wants and needs will still require two other economic transitions, as Hunter Levin spoke about last year. First, a circular economy which reduces, reuses, and recycles is important to reduce the production inputs of our finite supplies of natural resources and natural systems. This will also help to reduce our production outputs of chemicals, plastics, nitrogen, and pollutants, which threaten our planetary boundaries and sustainability as described. Also, with respect to the latter, we must also transition towards a regenerative economy which helps to restore our land, soil, watersheds and oceans, forests, and biodiversity as we continue to utilize our natural systems. For example, it is vital to develop a regenerative system of agricultural food production. The widespread practices used in large-scale agriculture generally are destructive in terms of soil erosion, loss of soil structure, and fertility. This requires the application of artificial fertilizers, while the application of pesticides and herbicides kills a living biotic system which enhances soil fertility. Both applications lead to extensive water pollution runoff. At the same time, regenerative agriculture can be a powerful ally to fight climate change by, one, utilizing the soil to be a sink for atmospheric carbon emissions, and two, reducing excess nitrogen oxide emissions from artificial fertilizers. In summary, the future of our civilization to sustain itself is being visibly threatened not only by climate change, but through several other conditions which are depleting and contaminating our natural systems in a finite world. The root causes are population and consumption of material goods, which also increase as other countries strive to improve their own standard of living. Therefore, it is vital to undertake an economic transition whereby we as consumers increasingly focus upon a quality of life based upon experiences and services while reducing a materialistic consumption. This transition alone will not suffice, however, so we must also transfer to a circular economy which reduces the material throughput, and a regenerative economy, which helps to restore our natural systems. Thank you. I didn't expect applause, but before discussion, I just want to mention one other thing. You know, this paper that I just read was rather qualitative in terms of talking about the issues. I want to give you something which is also somewhat more concrete, which reinforces what I just talked about. Some of you may have heard that there's an international consortium called the Global Footprint Network, which takes a look at our environmental footprint and our carbon footprint. And this has been going on for about roughly 30 years or so that they've been doing these studies. And they're actually also doing lots of consulting work, this consortium of scientists, with governments and institutions and companies. But at the present time, from their work, they look at how much biological productivity is provided by nature in all the living systems, like, for example, fisheries, forests, food that's produced, all the biological productivity that's produced in the world. And they compare that with how much biological productivity we're using as a civilization. And they've concluded at the present time that we're using about 1.8 times as much as Earth produces every year. So in other words, it's like having a savings account where you can't live on your interest, but you have to deplete your principal further every year. That's bad enough, but underscoring what I was talking about in this paper here, it's even worse because if everybody had the current lifestyle of people in the United States, it would require 4 Earths to provide the amount of biological productivity that's being consumed. So, some other things for further reflection. And now, I'd like to hear what you have to say.
There are 3 things.
Yeah. First of all, related to... Excuse me, first of all, since we have people online.
3 things that are related to what you were talking about this morning. I have a brother who lives in Denver who's a geologist, and he and the company he works for and 2 or 3 of the leading experts in the world were in Mexican Hat, Utah last year at one of the largest uranium, I don't know what you call it, where they put it and they seal it and cover it, and it's leaking. And radioactive disposal site, thank you. So what they discovered was the recommendations they made years and years ago for how to do this, to seal the bottom and the top, were deemed by the Department of Energy to be too complicated or something. They cut some corners, and now this whole pile is leaking. So they're trying to figure out how to correct that. That's one thing. So, and that's probably happening all over the world. The next thing is when Diane and I were at representatives from this church to Rocky Mountain Sit-In some years ago, the keynote speaker was a person who's on the staff of Pacific Lutheran Theology Seminary in California, and her main topic was climate change. She said all these people all over the world that are living at sea level, as sea level rises, they will be moving, and where are they going to go? I don't remember the numbers, but she had astronomical numbers of people that live at sea level that will have to move to higher altitude, higher level. And where are they going to go? That's a big, big problem. And the third thing is my children give me a terrible time about the amount of clothes I have, especially shirts. And I realized at my age, I don't need to buy new shirts. So I go to the secondhand store and buy for way less money, so that's reusing. So, yeah, but this climate change is happening, and I don't know how we're so divided on whether it is real or not. What are we going to do? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Just one quick comment on that. Unfortunately, scientists aren't believed anymore through different segments of society because it doesn't fit the mantra that you want to promote or believe. And for a long time in this country, it was felt, when you got on TV, and I'm talking about like 20 years ago, to talk about climate change, well, you had to have somebody from the other side talking about it as a denier, that reasons why it's not happening and why it's not credible. And it got spread through this type of approach throughout our country that it's really an open question, that there's a lot of doubt and lack of solidarity about the issue. That's never been the case since probably the mid-1990s. 95% of all the scientists have believed that it's real and that we have to do something about it.
Just one quick remark. They're in denial. They just don't want to believe, so they're believing what they want to be true, because if they did, if they believed it, they would be terrified, and secondly, they might have to do something about it. They might have to change. People don't like change. That's not a scientific approach. That's a psychology.
For sure, what I was talking about today involves probably more psychology than anything.
Thank you. Enjoyed your presentation. Thank you. Yes, so next time we go to Arizona, we won't go buy Mexican hat, because we don't want to get uranium poisoning, whatever it is. Yeah, so far as the environment is concerned, you mentioned the figure 95% of scientists. What about the other 5%? I mean, I'm just a dumb violinist, but how could there even be 5% of scientists, or even 2%, who can deny climate change? Ask the people in the area of the Pacific Ocean who are moving from their islands now. I mean, is that something that somebody can have an opinion about? I don't think so. But anyway, back to what I really wanted to say, and that is this whole issue, I think, of your topic. The solution comes back to the human race, somehow or other, trying to make a decision as to how they're going to be able to save planet Earth. And we in the Western world appreciate our private enterprise system, and it's brought a lot of wonderful things and progress to the Western world. Yet the private enterprise system is, in its basic raw existence, is in direct conflict with all of these issues that are plaguing the existence of planet Earth. So it's just a question of whether or not the human race is going to be able to balance the private enterprise system of making money with the issues of the environment. And I don't know that I feel too good about our chances, to be honest.
I found your talk both frustrating and challenging. Frustrating because I think the normal human response, and we all look pretty normal, is, number one, me, myself, and mine. And that's where I think Christianity can be, or any religion, can be a big help. The challenging part, a matter of identity. If we believe that it's not just about me, mine, etc., that our identity is in God, the force, Jesus, Atman, Brahman, you name it, if we have a larger perspective, a larger identity that may help us move beyond, oh, how do you like my new blouse? Oh, more stuff. And I must confess, I was in shock when I saw restaurant dining listed as one of the entities pertaining to quality of life. Because as you and other friends know, I've never seen a restaurant I didn't like. So I, along with the rest of the planet, have a lot of work and learning to do.
Thank you. I just one quick comment about what Darlene said. No, there's a certain irony in including restaurant dining as one of the services and ways of improving quality of life, because it turns out that if you take a sector of the economy called food and drink and include everything under it, you know, whether milk, alcoholic beverages, et cetera, and all types of food that we consume. It turns out in our country, per dollar of expenditure, no sector other than food and drink has a higher emission of greenhouse gases per dollar spent than food and drink. However, since we have to eat anyway, might as well make that one of our things to improve quality of life.
Every time I go to City Market and see grocery carts of bottled water going out the door, it drives me crazy. We have good water here. I know some of it is people that have business where men are working outdoors, they take it to them because they don't have water. But that's not all of it. I mean, you see tourists with 2 and 3 of those big things in their cart going out the door, and I want to say, no, we have good water here. It just drives me crazy.
I found over the last couple of years a couple of incredible energy-saving devices. Mr. Musk invented at least one of them. I'm not a Musk person, but this thing really works. It's an electrical device. You plug it in, and you put like 3 or 4 of them equidistant in your house, and they even out the spikes of the electricity you're receiving. They take about 2.5 months to sink into your electrical system. And I got them thinking, no, this is just a joke, and it's not going to work. Well, after they synced, my electricity reduced 90%. I don't know what the mechanism is.
What's the product?
It's, well, the original one is called the Elon Musk Power Saver. I bought a knockoff from China, and that's called Power Saver Pro. Yeah, it's about yay by yay. And you need several of them. Depends on the size of your house. I have 4 of them in my 1650 square foot house, and they cost like $15 a piece. So I figured it was worth the risk. And then I found an electric and a high efficiency electric heater that's about yay by yay by yay. And so I started experimenting with heating my home with electricity. Now, I also have solar, but usually I use up my solar bank by mid-January. Didn't this year. I did lose my bank twice, but it built back up immediately the next month. That's unheard of. And my electric bill has been, for the last, 7 months or so, been like $20. I've used almost no electricity from the grid. And most of that bill is taxes and add-ons. I've used almost no electricity. So if you want more of the details, I can give it to you. But
Thank you.
I wanted to add, but Doug's already kind of covered it. We got solar 10 years ago, I think, and I was compulsively checking it constantly with a spreadsheet and calculating. I finally gave up on that after about 5 or 6 years. we saved 85% of our electric bill. And it would be over 100%, and we'd be getting money back, I guess. But the snow covers the panels for 3 months of a year. So I think that's what you're talking about too. And it depends on the year. Now that it's warmer and the snow comes later and leaves earlier, and all, I think our production is going up. Sorry to say, climate change.
It keeps to me, I'm sorry. Oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
It keeps coming back, and Eileen was referring to this also, it keeps coming back to the self-centeredness of human nature. Some of you know, I've been a member of the Great Decisions discussion group that meets in Frisco in the winters. And on one occasion, the topic was fracking. And we went up and down and sideways and every which way. And finally we decided that we just simply didn't want to have fracking in Colorado. But if they wanted to do it in Oklahoma, that was okay.
Not in my backyard. Oh, it's good. That's good.
Selfishness is certainly part of this, but the economy is based, economic growth is based on purchasing. It's production and purchasing. And we, the consumer, has to be the one to stop it. We're the ones that have to make the change, because nothing out there is going to say, oh, you don't need that new shirt. Right. Nothing out there is going to say that. And we also need to be careful about what we're buying, and I am not. I mean, I have a lot of clothes, so unfortunately most of them are older than my grandchildren. But that's okay. But one of the things we need to do is look at what we're doing with plastics, with synthetics. All our synthetics. This is synthetic, this is synthetic, this is cotton. Yay!
Yeah, we're cotton.
We need to use more cotton, more organic fibers to do this, because these are just like plastics. They cost more to produce, or maybe less, but they also have no sustainability in our world. Can't even make a quilt out of this stuff, you know? So we need to make our choices. And I think about when I was a kid. Do you remember throwing your trash away? Your trash. What you didn't recycle insofar as composting. My dad and my grandpa lived next door to each other. We composted. Anything that couldn't be composted, we wrapped in a piece of newspaper. A little 1-2 sheets that day. Wrapped it up real nice, tossed it in the trash. By the end of the week, you probably had 6-7 little packets in there. You didn't have tons of stuff. But then when you went to the grocery store, you bought a piece of meat wrapped in paper. You didn't have all this plastic around it. You didn't have the styrofoam of it. You didn't have the anti-theft stuff that we as human beings, through selfishness and theft, have brought on ourselves. But what can we do to reverse the trend?
A comment on what you just said. I referenced Barry Commoner, and he did a fascinating study in the post-war economy from like about 1948 to 1962 in this country. And it's amazing, you know, during the frugality of the Second World War that we experienced in this country, how all of a sudden things changed. For example, two of the largest product categories in terms of leading towards economic growth in this country post-war in that period, one was disposable beer bottles, and another one was increased horsepower for engines.
The one thing that gives me hope, and I'm not quite sure, I suppose it came from the schools, I don't know where it came from, but I was very surprised when one of our grandchildren, who has grown up in a far more affluent household than the one his parents grew up in, suddenly he was always shopping at thrift stores. That's just where he went. And I thought, well, that's cool. Maybe it's the schools, I don't know.
if Chris Jacobson can give us some encouragement about population leveling off.
So what, are you into murder now? Speaking of synthetics, one thing that we can do right away, scrap will take synthetics along with natural fibers and reweave them. They break them down and then reweave. So it doesn't matter what the cloth is. You can take them up to the dump and recycle them.
Are you saying they will take old clothes?
It's been very difficult at the dump in that clothing recycle thing, because there's an awful lot of different things coming out of that. I was told, I contacted the company, I did all kinds of stuff, and they said, no, just usable clothing. Now that's a big, if we can find out for sure, because I've got, with the senior rummage sale, I've got tons of cloth that I have no idea where to take that cloth. And if that's the truth, then we could take it up there. But I don't want to take it up there and then have them throw it in the dump.
Are you on the same topic?
Yes, we took clothing to the it's at the end of May when you take your recycles to the bus barn. Yeah, we took cloth and they took it. Did they use it? I don't know. She said, "Is that bag? Is that cloth?" And I said, "Yes." Okay, good. So they took it.
What a lot of times they do is they just separate.
I don't know. I'm just telling you that they took it, and I'm sorry that the hiking information out here says don't wear cotton hiking. Sorry about that.
On this topic, perhaps in our future, if we can dream still, if there are still dreams, maybe technology will allow us to recycle things that nobody can recycle now. And I just wanted to tell you all, I found this website and I sent it to Doug, hoping that he would interpret it for me because I'm not good at research. It's called Get Rid Well. And the URL is ridwell.com. These are the categories that they will come to your house and pick up. Now, not in Summit County, I'm sure, but in the big cities, it's a good place to start. Multi-layer plastic, plastic film, recyclable threads, rewearable threads, like clothes, the picture. Rewearable clothes and shoes, household batteries, flat lids, the kind we can't recycle here, household light bulbs, plastic clamshell containers. And then you can also sign up for these categories. There's a cost to this, of course. Electronics, corks, bottle caps, prescription pill bottles, bread tags, those little things you put on your bread at the end, and flat lids. And rotating featured categories includes Halloween candy, winter warmth, which is all kinds of wool and scarves and stuff, and kitchenware. And then styrofoam, which is why I sent it to Doug, latex paint, and fluorescent light bulbs.
okay, we're talking this topic. I need people's help. A lot of people know that I do the senior rummage sale. And I have gone from 2 huge roll-off dumpsters to a half a one. I think that's, it's a big thing. I have talked Pastor Kate. Well, first of all, we get so much stuff, and we don't know what to do with it. And it's all good stuff, and it's all, a lot of clothing and things. It's way too much to give to any one organization at a time, okay? I have talked Pastor Kate into letting me use one of the rooms downstairs to store bags of clothing in the room until we can slowly get it to the appropriate places at a reasonable time. Because as I said, you can't just overload these places, and everybody's getting so much stuff. This seems to be a group that would respond to that. So if that question ever comes up and other members of the congregation say, "What's all that junk in that room?" and if people could just get on my side and just say, "No, that's a good thing, and we need to do that." I would really appreciate that, because it is just a big, big thing.
Thank you, Joe. Okay. So,
I'm just going to make one comment, not on really just kind of what is a global trend. If you look at birth rates in populations as a function of wealth, it's a really kind of a universal thing across all countries in the world that as countries get wealthier, their birth rate goes down. It's expensive to have kids, and if you're a subsistence farmer, then having lots of kids is a good thing, because then you have kind of a workforce, you have a way to guarantee your retirement, and so on. But when you get into wealthier countries, the birth rate goes way down. If you project forward to that, now the projections are always subject to uncertainty, but the best guesses from demographers are that if you look at plots of Earth's population over time, it looks like it's climbing up to the sky. But if you actually look at this demographic shift, our peak population is expected to be about 2080, the year 2080, and then it will decline. So the optimistic thing I would say is that we have to solve problems that reach 50 years ahead, and if we do so, we're then in good shape for beyond that time. That's just sort of one thing I'll say.
I'm glad Chris was the one that mentioned population, because that's sort of the elephant in the room that it's very difficult to discuss, so long as everybody wants to keep having more grandchildren and, of course, more children as well. But one thing that's kind of sobering that goes along with something Chris just said is that depending upon what type of resource, energy or metal or material you're talking about, if you look at consumption rates per capita around the world, they can vary anywhere from about 1% to 50% of what we consume in the United States per capita. So that as the population goes up and they become more affluent, they want to consume more like the United States, which will lead me to the closing remarks from our ELCA statement. Anybody else?
Thank you. Doug, you and I are friends of old standing, so I think you'll put up with me for this. I enjoyed your presentation, but one thing I didn't hear too much of, and that is, and I mentioned this earlier, and always if people start talking about the profit motive and that it's a bad thing, it's like, communist, kick him out of the country. He's a commo, but. Do you feel that as you're thinking about sustainability, do you feel that there really is a problem with the profit motive?
Don't get me started.
Because you didn't talk about the profit motive much.
No, and one of the problems with our culture is that, and as good as the capitalist system has been in terms of providing for people and improving standards of living in our country and other capitalist countries, the problem is it's a disruptive system. It always wants, with new innovators and capitalists coming along, to shift to something new that we may or may not need or want, and then advertise to tell us why we want it and why we need it, and they're to get us consume more and more stuff. And as you know, through competition, companies are trying to outdo each other as far as this is concerned to get us ever increasing our consumption. So that's a major flaw, which I think alluded to before, will only be solved if we take individual action ourselves. Now, I shouldn't say the only thing. Two things give me a glimmer of hope. One, the new generations coming along, I think, may have somewhat different values. And secondly, social psychologists have said that when people see the need to really make a dramatic change, they can do it over relatively short periods of time. Like, for example, a couple things that are cited are how smoking disappeared as being an important cultural phenomenon in our country, and how in the mid-20th century wearing furs kind of disappeared as being a status symbol and people wanted to do. So.
Well, but along with that, the automatic, I think, oh, there it is, to ecology that economics go down, and that's simply not true. At least what I've been reading is that the opposite tends to happen. Not all the time. I bought some stocks, and they're not doing too well right now, but yeah, don't get me into that one. So it's not an either or. It's not an either or. And
how do we get the balance? That's what bothers me.
Yeah. But paying attention to our ecology creates that balance, is what I've been reading. Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else? If not, I'll have a little concluding remark here. As soon as I can find exactly where it was. This Lutheran social statement was written actually in 1993. As the word sustainability was becoming sort of a buzzword, and before the word sustainability got co-opted by so many people in society, and my pet peeve there is, you hear the Federal Reserve chairman talk about sustainability now. What he says is sustainability is the maximum amount of economic growth you can get without causing inflation. That's his definition. Okay, now, there's an interesting section in the Lutheran social statement here called Justice Through Sufficiency. The earth and its fullness belong to the Lord. No person or group has absolute claim to the earth or its products. The principle of sufficiency means meeting the basic needs of all humanity and all creation. In a world of finite resources, for all to have enough means that those with more than enough will have to change their patterns of acquisition and consumption. Sufficiency charges us to work with each other and the environment to meet needs without causing undue burdens elsewhere. We recognize many forces that run counter to sufficiency. We often seek personal fulfillment and acquisition. We anchor our political and economic structures in greed and unequal distribution of goods and services. Predictably, many are left without resources for a decent and dignified life. And closing with a prayer, we pray, therefore, for the strength to change our personal and public lives to the end that there may be enough. Amen.
And we got a quart of strawberries